everyone, welcome to day 2. Yesterday I was in a cemetery and today I'm next to a big rock. And before I tell you why, let's catch up. It's only day 2, but let's catch up. Each week we're going to have a theme with a key truth and a key verse. And I'm inviting you to memorize that verse. So at the end of 30 days, you can have 5 verses or tools in your tool belt to help you and to help others. On Friday, day 4, we're going to see a practical use of having a Bible verse in our tool belt. So this week's theme, time. Key truth, there's only 3 things that last for eternity: God, the Word of God, and the human soul. And our key verse is Ephesians 5:15 and 16. Do you remember? Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. So yesterday's challenge was to track your time. Keep doing it all week. The goal is to get accurate data on how we use or misuse our time. Right, we often say, "Oh, I wish I had more time," but often it's more appropriate to say, "I wish I used my time more wisely." It's easy to waste time, isn't it? This morning I was playing a word game on my phone and I was determined to make it to the next level. I thought it would take me 2 to 3 tries. But after 10 attempts, I realized I'm wasting time. So I said, just one more game, just one more. And after a dozen more games, I realized I have a problem. I love this quote from Gail Hyatt about why we misuse our time. She said, "People lose their way when they lose their why." Ooh, let that sink in. That's important when we're evaluating projects or setting goals or deciding if we're going to invest in something financially or emotionally or just our time and energy. Why do this? And that's why I'm standing next to a big rock. Years ago, I heard the illustration of putting the big rocks in first. Are you familiar with that illustration? Well, instead of explaining it, take a look at this short video.
There's a well-known story about a university professor who wanted to make a point about how we make the most of our time. The professor stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, without speaking, he picked up a large empty jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled the remaining open areas of the jar. "Now," said the professor, "I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possessions. If you were to put sand into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks or the pebbles. The same can be applied to your lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to look after your health, play with your children, go for a run, write a letter to your grandmother. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, or watch TV. Take care of the rocks first. The things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just pebbles and sand.
So, what are the big rocks in your life? What are the things most important to you that, if you had them in place and everything else was removed, you'd still have meaning and purpose in your life? What are they? And that's today's challenge. Identify your big rocks. What are the 3 to 5 most important things you must do each week to be put in a position to be the man that God has called you to be. What are those? So work on that. Be sure to share your response with your teammates, and I'm going to work on moving this big rock.